Hey guys, hope you're having a good day. So, in this video, and I truly mean that, I hope you're having a good day. But in this video, we're going to talk about the federal budget and we're going to talk about the COVID-19 relief bill and how they were combined, why they were combined, whether we agree with it or not. One thing I did want to talk about real quick. If you remember the last couple videos, we were doing chicken stock. It's not truly a bone broth. There's a few more steps to bone broth, which it takes a long time to make bone broth, but it's pretty close. But anyhow, real quick, here's what the chicken stock looks like when it's done. A lot richer, a lot better for you than buying powder or the stuff that comes in a wax box. So, and as you can see right back here, the pressure cooker is still going with the bone broth or with the chicken broth in it that you saw in the last video. That being said, it is at 11 psi. I achieved 11 psi. I meant to talk about this in the last video and didn't, so I'll just touch on it real quick. I'm going to eventually do an entire video. I'm working on editing skills right now so I can edit some videos. But what I do to get that 11 psi is once I put the lid on, lock it in place, which I'll show you how to do that in another video. Pressure starts to build. The little lock mechanism I talked about pops up. It starts pushing steam out of where the weight is right there. And I let that go for 10 minutes. I put the weight on. I have the burner cranked up to 8. And this will vary depending on your oven. But I have it cranked up to 8. You'll watch the pressure. Once you put the weight on, you'll watch the pressure gauge start to go up. When it hits about 6, I turn it from 8 to 4. And then when it gets up to about 9 pounds of pressure, I turn it down to 3. And then once it gets just a hair above 11, I turn it down just a hair. And then just tweak it from there. A lot of variables to that. It's not the same every time because it bases on how many jars you have in it, things like that. But anyhow, like I said, I'm working on my editing skills, so I should be able to do an entire video on, because as you know, I shoot mine all in one take. So if I screw up, I screw up. I'll still show the screw ups in it, but I want to be able to combine short segments. So anyhow, politics. I have a notebook right here because there's a lot to all of this. All right, so they're saying in the news that the COVID bill is $900 billion, but then I heard something about $2.3 billion, and I couldn't figure out what that was for a second. It hit me. People on Facebook were talking about $2.3 trillion. Jeez, oh Pete. 900 billion of that is the COVID package. The remaining 1.4 trillion dollars is the federal budget that funds our federal government until September 2021, where they have to have a new budget together for an annual. So, let's talk about this for a second. Out of that 2.3 trillion dollars, 900 billion automatically going to COVID relief. Now, that includes some small businesses. There's a small business package. That's $325 billion of that. Some of that includes relief to farmers. Now, the relief to farmers is only $20 an acre, which to me doesn't seem like a lot of money, but that's what I read. On a couple different things. Always do your research, especially when you want to talk about something, you want to do it in a public way. Because there's two things in life you shouldn't talk about really in public, and that's politics and religion. And I like to talk about politics, so I want to know what I'm talking about. 166 billion of that 900 billion. There's my lovely daughter, Abby, with a dirty face. And $166 billion of that is our checks. 55 billion of that goes to vaccines and testing. 120 billion of the 900 billion goes to unemployment. Um, $25 billion to renters assistance. Do what, honey? Oh. And then there's $10 billion set aside for child care, some set aside for broadband, for low income areas and rural areas, basically for school. If you are a lower income family who doesn't have internet, it will allow you to be able to pick up internet so your kids can do school. Oh, okay, you're gonna make a sandwich? All right. Do you want somebody to help you? Well, I don't know if we have any more. Why don't you ask Mommy or Sarah to help you make your sandwich? All right. So anyhow, and then there's $82 billion going to schools to help them pay for things they need to help keep schools running during the pandemic. The remaining $1.3 trillion, which I kind of have an issue with both sides of this, but I'll talk about that here in a second. Goes to the remaining 1.3 trillion goes to a 1% pay raise for civilian employees for the federal government, and then you have $671 billion going to the defense program, directly to the defense program. So that would be for our military. We have $656 billion going to the non-defense program. Now that it breaks into a lot of categories, but that would be education, research, parks and recreation, infrastructure, basically all the little things that the federal government pays for on a federal level. And then we have, and this is a big one because this is something that President Trump touched on, and I didn't understand it at first either. I mean, I thought I had a general idea, and I was kind of right. Is $77 billion for overseas contingency operations. Okay, so what is overseas contingency operations? And this is the one where they said we're supporting other countries with our bill. It actually isn't supporting other countries directly, so to speak. I mean, it kind of is indirectly, but not directly. It's not like we're handing any one country money. What this money goes to is to our Department of Defense operations overseas. That would be military bases, feeding our troops overseas. That would be our embassies, having them, supporting them financially so they can run. So yes, it may be sending money to Israel, but it's not going to the Israeli government. It's going to military bases that are there. It's going to our embassies there, things of that nature. Any place we have an embassy at. That's all over the world. But that's what the overseas spending is. That's the contingency operations. $3.1 billion is just going into an emergency fund. And that's for agencies that could be impacted by COVID. So it may not even be used and it can roll over, but I'm sure it will be used because of the way we're handling the pandemic. That's a whole other subject in itself. 3% is pay raises for the military. So, our military men and women will be getting pay raises. That's important. Everybody deserves a pay raise no matter what they do, but especially our military. They do a lot for us, whether we see it or not. Now, $58 billion of that, and these are all numbers I just found online. There's more to it than just this, because this doesn't equal up. It's close to 1.3 trillion, but it doesn't quite equal up. But anyhow, $58 billion goes to the Department of Health. And in that $58 billion, that helps to provide training, hiring, to help with social services, the poor, the low income, everybody, the homeless, which if you think about it in reality, it's a good amount of money, but it's necessary money. And if you watch my last video on how we could change some of that, that may not be as high a number down the road. $13.5 billion is going to the Treasury. I could not find anywhere in my research offhand where that, what they do with $13.5 billion, but I'm sure it's important. It's the Treasury, it handles our money. $461 million, million, not billion, is going to the IRS. And that's so they can update their AI and make it easier for us to pay our taxes and for them to assist us in paying our taxes. The big one, which I thoroughly agree with this, is it's a combined total. I combined it. It's 243 billion for veteran affairs and 90 billion for veteran care. Care of our veterans. For a total of $333 billion. So like I said, this is probably close to that 1.3 trillion, but I want you to know where it goes. And like I said, that the veteran money, that's well deserved. Those people, fought for our country, supported our country, defended our country, and it doesn't matter in what way, shape, or form, even if they were just a pencil pusher behind a desk, they were part of a support team to help somebody overseas. The veterans are something I'm very passionate about, and I really think we have done a horrible job of taking care of them, even though they take care of us. That being said, there's a lot of things I think that our system, our federal government in some ways is very flawed because it's so bogged down with, I don't want to say rules and regulations, but processes. That's the word I'm looking for, is processes. It's so bogged down with processes, with checks and balance, that it makes it hard to get anything accomplished in any amount of time. Now, I am not a veteran, was not allowed that opportunity to serve due to health issues. But like my brother-in-law, for example, I watched him go through it. He was a veteran. He served in our military, for a good chunk of time until he was honorably discharged under a medical. But I watched him struggle with the VA through most of his life before his passing. Trying to get things accomplished in a timely fashion, get his health care done, get it done right. There was a lot to that. So that's something that we really need to work on. At the same time, I don't think throwing money at everything is the solution. I know it helps, but even if you look at our school system, we dump money on our school systems as a country, left and right, hand over fist, and yet we still don't have computers in every class. We still have kids who can't get a paper. We still have paper and pencils. We still have teachers that have to help pay supplies for their classroom and for their students. So once again, much like my video on the helping the homeless and why we spend so much, or how we spend too much money on voting, that's something else that needs to be rethought of. But anyhow, those are different topics for different times. So now, my problem with the way this bill was done, I'm glad we got a COVID relief package. I am glad we got our budget done. Here's my problem with it. A, we were working on this COVID package for 6 months. It should never take 6 months. Not when you have people struggling. Unemployment at its highest. Millions of people unemployed, relying on checks because their businesses have shut down, because they've been sick. I mean, I know. Luckily, I didn't have to use the unemployment when I was stuck at home for 2 weeks in quarantine, but I was lucky. So, once again, processes of our government move so slow that it's affecting people. Which is not cool. Problem with all this was the federal budget was coming to its end about the same time they decided to get this together. So they put it together as one package to get it through quickly. They knew they could have kept going forever on the COVID bill, but they knew they had to get that done at least. And it just so happened the budget came up at the same time. So they got it together. They spent almost a month tweaking out details, not letting anybody read anything other than a handful of people. Some people from the White House, heads of the Senate, heads of the House. And then it comes to a Friday, and the government's supposed to shut down, but President Trump says, okay, no, I'll sign a deal keeping us open for 2 more days. You have 2 days to get this done. So they bum rush it over the weekend, on a Saturday and Sunday, well, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, and this handful of 5 or 6 people work out a deal. Okay, they get it together. They finalize all the details. They scrap things like state and city funding. State, city, and county funding was originally part of the coronavirus package that Democrats were trying to push through, and what that did was states that were hit hard by COVID, cities that were hit hard by COVID. I happen to live in a town where COVID's kind of, reared its ugly head enough that it's hurting us. But there were a handful of people in our government who did not want that funded, and that was one of the holdups. And in the long run, we didn't get funding for city and states, and that's why we dropped our COVID bill down from a little over $1 trillion down to $900 billion. That being said, here was my biggest issues with my 2 biggest issues with this whole thing. A, the budget should have never been put together with the COVID bill. It reads ugly to the American people. And I would like to say it's because, although it shouldn't, but let's be honest, a majority of people in the U.S. don't research, they don't look into things like they should. So all they saw was $2.3 billion, and we were sending money to other countries. That's not altogether true. Even like the non-defense bill, which is for all the things I spoke of earlier, education, scientific research, coronavirus, that also takes care of a lot of other little things that keep it running. But anyhow, so we shouldn't have put those 2 together to begin with. All it did was confuse people. They should have been separate. The COVID bill should have happened a long time ago. There's no excuse for that. Any way you go, no excuse for that. Hold on for me 1 second. I had to make sure we were still at 11 psi. Something you want to do. You gotta check that bad boy every so often, or things fall apart. So, but that happened. We can't change that. We can't go back. The only thing we can hope for is after the first of the year, when we get a new regime in, so to speak, our new president comes in, all our senators and congressmen get in and get settled with our next house. Things go a little better. We get another package out. We can help people recover. Here is another big issue I had. This is the second big issue. So they spend the weekend working on this bill. These handful, 5, 6 people say, okay, it's good to go. They all agree on it. Some of them were from the House, some of them were from the Senate, some of them were from the White House. So they sent it to at 1:49 that Monday, when everything was set to be voted on that Monday at 5 o'clock. They take this 5,593 page budget and COVID relief package, and they give it to all the other senators and congressmen and say, read as much as you can. We're voting on this at 5 o'clock. This was at 1:49 in the afternoon. So they literally had 3 hours and 11 minutes to read almost 6,000 pages and make an educated decision on whether they were going to vote on it or not. Now, everybody did vote on it, except for a handful of people. I want to say there was like a total of maybe 65 people that voted against it, mostly because they didn't have time to read it. It had nothing to do with their beliefs, but nobody can read 6,000 pages in less than 3 hours. Not going to happen. Not any normal human at any rate. That was my biggest issue with it. They did it behind closed doors. They didn't talk to anybody about it. It's 6,000 pages long, and they gave the rest of the world, well, the political worlds, the House and the Senate, less than 3 hours to read it all and vote on it. That being said, even now, looking online, and I looked at several sources, Chris looked at several sources, we could find a lot of what was in the COVID package, but not a whole lot in detail about what was in our budget. Now what we could find makes sense, and I get it. But once again, with people not taking the time to research, I mean, we had to actually sit down and look at this. But this is also something we're passionate about. I can see where you get, well, we just signed a bill for $2.3 trillion. Nobody on Facebook, everybody that said $2.3 trillion, nobody once said $900 billion of that was the relief package. The remaining $1.4 trillion of that was our budget. So that's why I made this video. And everybody kept saying, well, we're sending money to foreign countries. So I looked into it. Yes, we are, but it's to benefit us with our military and embassies. And then nobody's talking about the rest of where the money's going. But you can find all kinds of stuff on the relief package for COVID relief, which I agree with. Now, because of the way things played out, there are people that, my wife, the day after Christmas or 2 days after Christmas, she's driving down the road, and a lady who lives a few blocks from us on the main street, she sees her out in her front yard talking to a couple guys, and all her furniture and belongings are out in the front yard because she was removed. Now, why was she removed? I don't know, but I'm assuming it's because she's an older lady. Like I said, I'm assuming she was an older lady who probably lost her assistance due to the lapse in, funding, and she lost her home. Now, I could be completely wrong. I could be, but that was the first things that went through our mind at any rate, which is horrible, and it's happening all over the U.S. That shouldn't happen. I mean, now our family is very lucky. I've not stopped working. My wife has not stopped working. We're in industries that needed us, and we're able to work, so we're good there. But we have got to move. There's got to be a better way than the 6-month progress and arguing and debating of it all. And I know a lot of it is because, unfortunately, it's great we're a melting pot of a society, and we all have different values or views and opinions, and we want them to be heard by our federal government and represented. That's a good plan. The problem with that is we have so many views and opinions and things we want done with so many different representations that I think it hinders us because we try to make everybody happy. That doesn't even happen in real life. I know in my family there are 4 to 5 of us here. We have 4 children. We have me and Chris. And I guarantee you, not everybody's happy with our decisions. That's just a fact of life. Now, there are some base rules, like we treat each other with respect and dignity and stuff like that. But, if you go, hey, where do you want to go to dinner at? And everybody has 4 different opinions, each kid wants something different, and you have to pick one, you're going to have 3 that are unhappy. That's a fact of life. We are so set on trying to make everybody happy by representing each specific thing that at times it hinders us. And that's not good. Unfortunately, it's the way it is, and I haven't really come up with a great idea to fix that other than just, maybe our government, and Republicans will love this, not having so many fingers in the pot and making them just like a blanket set of rules where they just cover everything and you leave everything else up to the states, which I think is how it's supposed to work, but it doesn't. But anyhow, that's something completely different. I wanted to touch on that a little bit. Things I did not mention when it came to the stimulus bill, that also, not only did it help extend rent until March, it's not very long, it was either March or April, but it also helped with unemployment benefits and the SNAP program to feed everybody, or feed the lower income people who receive SNAP. So those are some things to look at. None of it's horrible. Most of it's necessary. I think it was just presented wrong. It's kind of like going to a restaurant or cooking something that looks like absolute crap, but it tastes fantastic. You know, so I don't disagree with all of this. I just want you to be informed properly. So when you go to talk about it out in a public format, you have information. Now, it's not like I got a million followers and a million different people are going to hear this, but it's a start, even if only one person hears it. I love you guys. I hope you have a great day. Take care. Stay safe. All right.